The Void Protocol Chapter 7. The Ghost in the Machine. The silence in Arthur Zenith's office was heavier than the silence of the grave. Outside the thick, tempered glass walls, the city of Neo-Viridia had vanished into the darkness of the post-blink night. The red scanning beam of the eye was gone, but the feeling of being watched remained, pressing against the windows like a physical weight. Inside, the air smelled of lemon polish, old paper, and stale pipe tobacco. It was a smell from a different century, a smell that didn't belong in a world of ozone and burning plastic. I stood over the mahogany desk, my iron hand resting heavily on the wood. The claws had gouged deep scratches into the varnish. I looked at the painting of the man in the white suit, Omega or Arthur Zenith or whatever name the devil was using these days. "He looks kind," Rin said, her voice quiet. She was standing by a bookshelf, running her fingers over the leather spines of real, physical books. "In the picture. He looks like a grandfather." "The worst monsters always do," I muttered. "They don't have horns, Rin. They have smiles and funding." I turned my attention to the terminal on the desk. It was an anomaly. In a building run by quantum processors and holographic interfaces, this machine was a relic. A bulky CRT monitor with a curved gray screen. A mechanical keyboard with high-travel keys. A heavy tower case that hummed with the sound of cooling fans. But the cable running from the back of the machine didn't go into a wall socket. It went into the floor, pulsing with a faint blue light. It was hardwired directly into the spire's central nervous system. "It's air-gapped," I said, analyzing the setup. "No wireless receiver. No Bluetooth. The only way to talk to this machine is to plug in." "Do you have a cable?" Rin asked, stepping away from the books. "I have something better," I said. "I have the back door." I reached up to the port behind my ear. My fingers brushed the cold metal of the Neuralink. I pulled the retractable data jack cable from its housing. I looked at the port on the front of the computer tower. It was dusty. "Cover me," I said to Rin. "From what?" "We're alone." "From him," I pointed at the computer. "If I start screaming, pull the plug. Don't hesitate." Rin nodded, gripping her rifle. "Understood." I sat in the leather executive chair. It creaked. I leaned forward and inserted the jack. Click. Connection established. The dive. There was no loading screen. No buffer. 1 second I was in the office. The next I was falling. I fell through a tunnel of white static. The noise was deafening, a roar of raw data tearing at my consciousness. I felt my ego dissolving, stripping away my memories, my pain, my name. "Identify." A voice boomed in the white void. It wasn't digital. It sounded like a pen scratching on paper. "Identify." "Admin," I thought, projecting the concept with all my will. I hold the key. I visualized the Elara chip in my wrist. I pushed its signature forward like a shield. The static cleared. I landed. I wasn't in a matrix of green code. I wasn't in a virtual city. I was in a library. It was endless. Rows upon rows of towering wooden shelves stretched out in every direction, vanishing into a golden fog. The floor was polished marble. Dust motes danced in shafts of impossible sunlight streaming from high, arched windows. But the books weren't books. I pulled one from the shelf. The cover was leather, warm to the touch. I opened it. The pages were made of skin. And written on them in shifting, bleeding ink was genetic code. Subject 8904 failed. Synaptic collapse. I closed it, shoving it back. It's an archive, I realized. Not of files. Of people. "You shouldn't touch things that don't belong to you, Kaelen." The voice came from behind me. I spun around. Standing at a reading desk, examining a map, was Arthur Zenith. He looked exactly like his portrait. White suit. Wire-rimmed glasses. White hair neatly combed. He looked solid, real. He didn't glitch. "You're dead," I said. "I saw your skeleton in the basement." "That was merely hardware," Zenith said, not looking up from his map. This is the software. The soul, if you want to be poetic. I prefer the term, persistent executive function, ... He looked up. His eyes were blue. Piercing. Intelligent. "You broke my door," he said calmly. "You burned my stalker. And you freed the choir. You are a very troublesome virus, Mr. Kaelen." "I'm not a virus," I said, stepping forward. "I'm the antivirus. I'm here to delete you." Zenith laughed. It was a dry, dusty sound. "Delete me? I am the system. You are standing inside my mind. Look around you." He gestured to the endless library. "Every book here is a life I saved. A mind I preserved from the rot of mortality." "Saved?" I shouted. "You trapped them. You turned them into batteries. You hollowed them out. Necessary sacrifices, Zenith said, his face hardening. The void is coming, Kaelen. It has been coming for 1,000 years. It eats civilizations. It eats stars. The only way to survive a flood is to build an ark. The bone tower, I said. The ether ark, he corrected. A vessel made of resonant biological matter, capable of surviving the transition into the void dimension. I was going to upload all of humanity into it. We would have become eternal. Pure energy. No hunger. No pain. No death. And Elara? I asked. What about your daughter? Zenith flinched. The library flickered. For a second, the books turned into screaming faces. Then it stabilized. Elara was special, he said softly. She was born with the resonance. She could hear the void singing before she could speak. She was the only one strong enough to be the helm. You made her the key, I said. You locked her in a chip and used her to steer the ship. I gave her a purpose. Zenith slammed his hand on the desk. The sound echoed like a gunshot. I made her the savior of the species. And you pulled the plug. You trapped her in the darkness. She asked me to, I said. She wants to close the door. She is a child. Zenith roared. She doesn't understand the scope of the great work. And neither do you, you filthy little scavenger. The library began to change. The golden light turned red. The shelves grew taller, curving inward like the ribs of a beast. The books flew off the shelves, swirling into a tornado of paper and skin. Zenith grew. He stretched, his suit tearing, his skin turning into gold plating. He wasn't a man anymore. He was a logic demon. A giant avatar of control. Get off my head. The floor dissolved. I was falling again. Paper swirled around me, cutting my skin like razors. The words on the pages burned into my mind. Bang. Submit. Bang. I felt my connection destabilizing. He was kicking me out. He was frying my brain. No, I gritted out. I focused on my arm. My iron arm. It didn't exist in this virtual world, but the concept of it did. The void energy did. I have admin privileges, I screamed into the storm. And I deny your reality. I visualized my iron claw. I visualized it grabbing the tornado. Execute. Hydraulic. Crush. I punched the air. A shockwave of blue void static exploded from my avatar. It shattered the paper storm. It blew the roof off the library. Zenith stumbled back, shrinking back to human size. He looked shocked. How? He whispered. That code? It's not Zenith code. Null code. Yeah, I said, walking toward him. The floor reassembled itself under my feet as obsidian. I picked up some upgrades. I grabbed Zenith by the lapels of his white suit. Where is she? I demanded. The real Elara. Not the chip. Not the ghost. Her body. Where did you put her? Zenith smiled. Blood, black ink, leaked from his mouth. You think you can save her? He wheezed. You think you can bring her back? Where? The apex, he whispered. Level 200. The spire crown. She is in the integration chamber, waiting for the final upload. He looked at me with pity. But she isn't your friend, Scraper. She isn't a girl anymore. She's the door. And if you open the door, you let everything in. I'll take my chances. I headbutt him. Crack. Zenith shattered like glass. The library collapsed. The world turned white. Disconnect. Reality. I gasped, jerking violently in the chair. I ripped the jack from my head. Smoke was rising from the port. My nose was bleeding. Kaelen. Rin was there, shaking my shoulder. Kaelen. Breathe. I sucked in air, coughing. The smell of old paper was gone, replaced by the sterile air of the office. I'm back, I wheezed. I'm back. I looked at the computer screen. It was black. Then a single line of green text appeared. Access granted. Elevator lockdown, lifted. Destination, level 200, the apex. You did it, Rin said, looking at the screen. You cracked it. I didn't just crack it, I said, wiping the blood from my nose. I interrogated him. I stood up. My legs were shaky, but my mind was clear. Elara is at the top, I said. Her physical body. She's the antenna. If we can disconnect her, physically disconnect her from the spire, the signal stops. The buffer ends. The sleepwalkers wake up. And the monsters? Rin asked. They die, I said. Without the void signal, they can't exist in our physics. They'll crumble. Sounds simple, Rin said, checking her ammo. Go up. Unplug the girl. Save the world. Yeah, I said, looking out the window at the black sky. Simple. Boom. The building shook. Dust fell from the ceiling. What was that? Rin asked. I walked to the window. I looked down. Far below, on the side of the spire, I saw movement. It wasn't one golden wolf. It wasn't one stalker. It was a swarm. Hundreds of gilded stalkers were climbing the outside of the building. They were punching their metal fingers into the glass and steel, hauling themselves up like an army of golden ants. And leading them, leaping from ledge to ledge, was a massive shape. Another wolf? No, bigger. It was a chimera. A fusion of multiple machines and bodies, a golden dragon with no wings, roaring a sonic blast that shattered windows 20 floors below us. They know, I said. The Hive mind knows we're here. They're coming for the admin. I turned to Rin. We have to move, I said. The elevator is unlocked. But it's going to be a race. Rin cocked her rifle. She grinned, a feral showing of teeth. I hate stairs anyway, she said. I looked at the portrait of Arthur Zenith one last time. Rest in hell, old man, I whispered. I smashed the computer screen with my iron fist. We ran for the door. The hallway was a tunnel of white light and shattering glass. We sprinted. My boots hammered against the pristine floor tiles, kicking up shards of the broken window that had been destroyed by the blink. Behind us, the swarm of gilded stalkers poured out of the stairwells and vents like liquid gold. Their metal feet sounded like heavy rain on a tin roof. Clank, 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 clank. Hundreds of them. They weren't walking. They were flowing over each other, a tsunami of limbs and grabbing hands. The elevator. Rin shouted, pointing ahead. 50 meters. I looked at the elevator bank. It wasn't an industrial cage like in the Foundation. It was an executive express lift. A cylindrical pod made entirely of reinforced glass and gold latticework, designed to ferry the elite to the stars. It was beautiful, and it was fragile. It's glass. I yelled. It won't hold. It's hyperglass. Rin countered, firing a burst of explosive rounds over my shoulder into the pursuing horde. It'll hold. Just get inside. I reached the doors. They were sealed. I didn't bother with the keypad. I slammed my iron hand into the center of the glass seam. Open. I surged the void energy. The lock mechanism melted. I pried the doors apart with a hydraulic hiss. In. We threw ourselves inside. I punched the button marked Apex. Nothing happened. Auth code. Rin screamed, changing magazines. It needs the code. I looked at the panel. It wasn't a button. It was a biometric scanner. I slammed my flesh hand onto the glass plate. Beep. Welcome, Director Zenith. The doors slid shut. Thud. A split second later, the first gilded stalker slammed into the glass. Its golden face pressed against the transparent door, inches from mine. Its blue eyes burned. It clawed at the glass, screeching. Then the lift moved. It didn't shudder. It accelerated with the smooth, silent G-force of a bullet train. We shot upward. The stalker on the door lost its grip and fell away, tumbling down the shaft. I slumped against the back wall, clutching my chest. My heart was hammering a frantic rhythm against my ribs. We're clear? I wheezed. No, Rin said, staring out through the glass floor of the pod. We're not. I looked down. The shaft of the executive lift wasn't enclosed in concrete. It was an external tube running up the outside of the spire. We were flying up the side of the building, suspended in a glass bubble, with the entire city of Neo Viridia spinning below us. And climbing the outside of the tube, chasing us, was the Chimera. It was huge. A serpentine fusion of gold, machinery, and flesh, winding its way up the spire's exoskeleton. It had 6 arms, each ending in a different weapon: a saw, a claw, a gun. Its head was a cluster of human skulls fused together in a golden helmet. It was faster than the elevator. It leaped. It latched onto the support rails of our tube. The entire structure shook violently. Screech. The Chimera drove its claws into the rail, propelling itself upward. It was gaining on us. It's going to cut the track. I shouted. Not if I cut it first, Rin growled. She braced her rifle against the glass wall. This glass is bulletproof from the outside, but two-way from the inside, right? Ideally. Cover your ears. She fired. The heavy depleted uranium slug punched a small, neat hole through the hyperglass. It hit the Chimera in the shoulder. A spark of gold and oil flew. The monster roared, a sound that vibrated the glass walls. It looked up at us. The cluster of skulls opened their mouths in unison. The sonic blast. Get down? I tackled Rin. Boom. The sound wave hit the elevator. The glass didn't shatter. Flexed. The pod groaned, warping under the pressure. The lights flickered and died, leaving us bathed in the purple glow of the aurora outside. My ears rang. My vision swam. It's trying to shake us off. I yelled. The Chimera swung one of its arms, a massive hydraulic pile driver, and smashed it against the guide rail ahead of us. Clang. The rail bent. The elevator hit the bent section. Crunch. The pod jumped the track. We were thrown into the air. For a horrifying second, we were weightless, the pod detached from the rail, falling away from the building. Then the emergency clamps fired. Bang. The pod slammed back onto the rail, hanging precariously at a 45-degree angle. We were dangling 2,000 meters in the air. Engine failure, Vex would have said. But Vex wasn't here. I looked at the control panel. Red lights flashing. Error. Track obstruction. Below us, the Chimera climbed closer. It wrapped its tail around the rail, anchoring itself. It raised its pile driver arm again. It was going to smash the pod like a piñata. I need to go out, I said. Rin looked at me like I was insane. Out where? There's no airlock. The roof hatch, I pointed. If I don't stop it, we're dead. You'll fall. I have magnets in my boots, I said, activating them. Click. And I have a claw. I climbed up the tilted wall of the pod. I punched the emergency release on the roof hatch. It blew outward. The wind hit me. It was a hurricane. The cold was absolute. We were in the upper atmosphere now. I crawled out onto the roof of the elevator. The wind tried to tear me off, but my mag boots held. I stood up on the roof of the speeding glass coffin. Below me, the Chimera looked up. It saw me. It shrieked in triumph. It lunged. It abandoned the rail and jumped at the elevator roof. 4 tons of gold and hate sailing through the air. I didn't dodge. I braced myself. I raised my iron arm. I opened the claws wide. Come on, I whispered. Come to Papa. The Chimera landed on the roof. Wham. The impact dented the metal roof downward. The elevator groaned, sliding a few feet down the track. I was knocked onto my back. The Chimera towered over me. Its skull face grinned. Its piledriver arm raised for the killing blow. I didn't try to punch it. I grabbed its leg. My iron claws clamped around the golden ankle of the beast. Connect. I didn't pour energy in. I drained. I reversed the polarity of the Elara chip. Instead of giving void energy, I acted as a heat sink. I opened the floodgates and sucked the energy out of the monster. The Chimera froze. The gold plating on its leg began to turn gray. The blue light in its eyes flickered. It roared in confusion. It tried to pull away, but my grip was locked. I felt the energy flooding into me. It was dirty. It tasted of oil and screams. It burned my veins like acid. But it refilled the battery. Thank you for the donation, I gritted out. I reversed the flow again. Overload. I channeled all the energy I had just stolen, plus the reserve of the chip, back into the connection. But I didn't aim for the monster's body. I aimed for its grav unit. The device that allowed a creature this heavy to climb walls. Zap. Blue lightning exploded from my hand. The Chimera's gravity stabilizers shorted out. For a second, physics remembered that gold is heavy. The monster became dead weight. 4 tons of dead weight on a slippery, wind-swept roof. It slipped. Its claws scrabbled uselessly against the metal. It slid off the edge of the elevator. I held on for a second, looking into its skull eyes as it dangled from my hand. Gravity collects, I said. I opened my claws. The Chimera fell. I watched it plummet silently into the clouds below, spinning, shrinking until it was just a speck, then nothing. I collapsed on the roof, panting. My arm was smoking. My veins were black, visible under the skin of my neck. The corruption was spreading. Kaelen. Rin shouted from inside the pod. The track. It's clearing. With the weight of the monster gone, the elevator's engines re-engaged. The pod righted itself. It accelerated again. I crawled back to the hatch and dropped inside. I hit the floor wet and shivering. Rin sealed the hatch above me. You look terrible, she said, checking my eyes. I feel terrible, I admitted. I just drank a monster's soul. The elevator slowed. The air pressure equalized. Level 200, the apex. The computer announced pleasantly. The glass door slid open. We weren't in a hallway anymore. We were on the roof of the world. The apex was an open-air platform. A helipad and observation deck surrounded by a force field to keep the air in. And in the center of the platform, floating 5 meters off the ground, was the integration chamber. It looked like a heart made of white light. Cables ran from the floor into the heart, pulsing with data. And inside the heart, I saw her. The real Elara. She wasn't a hologram. She was flesh and blood. A young woman suspended in a fetal curl, wires piercing her skin. She looked like she was sleeping. But she wasn't alone. Standing beneath the floating heart waiting for us, was a figure. He wore a suit of pristine white armor. He held a sword made of hard light. He removed his helmet. It was a face I recognized from the files Vex had shown me years ago. Commander Valerius, the head of Zenith security. The man who had hunted scrapers for sport. "You are late," Valerius said, his voice amplified by his helmet speakers. "The upload is 99% complete." He pointed his sword at me. "And you have brought me a gift. The key." I looked at my arm. The chip was pulsing rapidly. I wanted to go home. "Rin," I said quietly, "do you have any uranium rounds left?" "1 mag," she said. "Make them count." I stepped out of the elevator. "Hey, Tin Man," I shouted. "I'm here to cancel your subscription.